Hello and welcome. This guide is brought to you by the team at My Tax Accountant. We are going to be tackling a topic today that honestly affects thousands and thousands of families right across the UK, and many of them don't even know it. We're talking about the babysitter tax. Now, I know, the minute you hear the word tax, your eyes might start to glaze over. But please, stick with me on this one. Understanding this is actually way more straightforward than you think, and getting it right from the start can save you a whole world of stress down the line.
So let's just kick things off with a really simple question, one that seems totally innocent on the surface. At the end of the night, when your babysitter is ready to go home, do you just hand them a bit of cash? It feels easy, right? It's a simple transaction for a job well done. But, and this is a big but, what you might not realize is that this very, very common practice could actually be putting you in a bit of a tricky legal spot with HMRC.
And why is that? Well, it's because if you pay a babysitter on a regular basis, you could have, completely without knowing it, taken on a whole host of legal responsibilities. You might have turned yourself into what's known in the tax world as an accidental employer. Honestly, it's a term that catches so many parents completely off guard, but it is absolutely crucial that you understand what it means for you and, of course, for your finances.
Okay, so let's dive into this properly. What on earth does it actually mean to be an accidental employer? Well, the important thing to grasp here is that it's not about what you intended to do, it's all about the nature of the actual arrangement you have with the person who's looking after your kids. So let's break it down and see if this sounds familiar to you.
So what does this formal definition actually mean in the real world? Well, to put it simply, the moment your arrangement with your babysitter becomes regular and consistent, HMRC stops seeing it as just a casual, one-off job. Instead, they see you as an employer with a very specific set of duties. The key words here are regularity and control. You need to ask yourself, are they working for me on a consistent basis? Maybe every Friday night? Do I set their hours and tell them what their duties are? If the answer to those questions is yes, then guess what? You're almost certainly an employer in the eyes of the law.
Now, what's really helpful about this slide is how clearly it lays out the difference. A lot of parents just assume their babysitter is self-employed, but in most cases, that's just not true. A genuinely self-employed person runs their own business. They have their own insurance, they set their own rates, they work for lots of different families. Most regular babysitting arrangements where you dictate the terms, as you can see there on the left, fall squarely into that employee category. And understanding this one distinction, well, it's the foundation for everything else we're about to talk about.
That's not all. Here's where most people really get caught out. Let's look at the specific numbers, the pounds and pence, that actually trigger these responsibilities. These payment thresholds are what officially turn you from someone just getting a bit of help into a fully registered employer. And just to be clear, we're using the numbers for the 2025 to 2026 tax year.
Right. The first number you absolutely need to burn into your memory is £123 per week. This is what's called the lower earnings limit. The very moment you pay your babysitter more than this in any given week, even if it's just by a single pound, you are legally required to register as an employer with HMRC and start operating a payroll system. Think of it like a tripwire. Crossing it officially begins your responsibilities, even if no tax is actually due at this point.
Okay, moving on to the next key figure, £175 per week. Once your babysitter's pay goes past this amount, you, as the employer, have to start paying something called Class 1 national insurance contributions. Now, this is really important. This is an extra cost on top of their wages. It's a cost that many accidental employers completely forget to budget for, and it can come as a nasty surprise.
And finally, we have the third threshold, £242 per week. When their earnings go above this level, your babysitter also has to start paying national insurance. So at this stage, you'll need to deduct their employee national insurance contributions directly from their pay before you give it to them. This means you're not just paying your own contributions, you're also responsible for calculating, deducting, and paying theirs. This is where getting your payroll right becomes absolutely critical.
And here's a quick pro tip, because this is probably the single biggest point of confusion I see. A lot of people think, well, my babysitter earns way less than the annual personal income tax allowance of £12,570, so I don't need to worry about any of this. But that is absolutely not true. Your legal duty to register as an employer and run a payroll kicks in at just £123 a week. That's long before income tax even enters the conversation. Please don't mix those two things up.
Okay, stay with me here. The next point might actually surprise you because we're about to bust some of the most common and potentially most costly myths about paying your babysitter. These are the assumptions that so often land well-meaning, honest parents in a bit of hot water with HMRC.
Right, let's tackle the biggest myth of them all. The idea that paying in cash keeps things simple and, well, off the books. Legally speaking, this is just not the case. The method you use to pay someone is completely irrelevant to HMRC. It doesn't matter if you pay by bank transfer, a check, or a crisp £20 note. If you cross those thresholds we just talked about, you have the exact same legal duties as any other employer in the country. You have to register, you have to calculate contributions, and you have to report it all correctly.
And this slide really highlights the risk of ignoring this. This isn't just about some administrative headache. The financial consequences are very real. Did you know that HMRC can and will issue penalties for failing to register on time or for filing your payroll reports late? These fines start at £100 for every single missed deadline, and they can escalate pretty quickly. And that's on top of having to find the money for any backdated tax and interest payments. It's a stressful situation you really want to avoid.
Let's look at a real-life example just to see how all these numbers stack up. So imagine you're a freelancer living in London, and you hire a babysitter named Chloe for 20 hours a week at $12.50 an hour. As you can see from the table, her gross pay is $250. Because that's over the 242 threshold, you need to deduct 96 pence for her national insurance. That leaves her with a take-home pay of $249.04. But remember, her pay is also over the $175 employer threshold, which means you have to pay an extra $10.35 in your own contributions. So the total weekly cost to you isn't $250, it's actually $260.35. That's the true cost of employment. Okay, so now that you understand the thresholds, the myths, and the risks, it can all feel a little bit daunting. I get that. But please, don't worry. Now let's look at the next step, which is a simple, clear checklist to get everything in order and make sure you're fully compliant with the law.
As you can see right here, there's a clear 5-step process that will keep you on the right side of the rules. So, step 1, confirm their employment status using HMRC's own online tool. Step 2, as soon as you hit that $123 weekly payment, get registered as an employer. Step 3, get a payroll system set up. You can use software or a dedicated service for this. Step 4, always provide a payslip. It is their legal right. And finally, step 5, you must report every single payment to HMRC in real time. Follow this structure and you'll have nothing to worry about.
And please remember, this is absolutely crucial. Good record keeping is completely non-negotiable. You are legally required to keep accurate, detailed records of all payments you make, all the tax and national insurance deductions, and any employment agreements you have. And you have to keep them safe, because HMRC can ask to see these documents for up to 6 years after the tax year they relate to. So being organized from day one is essential.
Look, we know this can all seem pretty overwhelming, especially when you're already trying to juggle work, family life, and everything else that gets thrown at you. And that's exactly why, for many parents, the simplest, safest, and most stress-free solution is just to get some expert help.
Just think about it for a second. Managing a payroll isn't just about doing a few sums. It's about meeting strict deadlines. It's about staying on top of any changes to tax codes. And it's about handling official paperwork like a P45 if your babysitter moves on. Handing all of that over to a professional doesn't just save you a ton of time, it protects you from making costly mistakes and facing potential fines. Ultimately, what it gives you is complete peace of mind.
So if you'd like some personalized advice on setting up a payroll for your babysitter, or if you have any other tax questions at all, the team here at My Tax Accountant is ready and waiting to help. They specialize in making these complex tax situations feel simple and manageable. You can reach them directly on WhatsApp or by phone at 07854 255 375. Again, that's 07854 255 375. Or you can just drop them an email at info@mytaxaccountant.co.uk.
So, I'll leave you with one final thought. Getting this sorted out might seem like just another tedious task on an already endless to-do list. But taking action and being proactive is always the best approach. It allows you to completely remove that worry from your plate so you can focus on what truly matters: your family, your work, and your own peace of mind.
Thank you so much for joining us for this guide on the babysitter tax. We really hope you now have the clarity and the confidence to handle your obligations correctly. For more simple, no-nonsense tax advice just like this, make sure you hit that subscribe button for the My Tax Accountant YouTube channel. Thanks for watching.